All right. Let's get this party started. Welcome back. My name is Mr. Thompson. This is Thompson's Homeroom, your home for daily news, strong opinions, and hot topics. I will say this before I get started. Tomorrow, I will be giving an update specifically for my Alliance College Ready Public School stakeholders. I have a big meeting coming up with Pablo next week. And I'm happy to announce that a lot of people have come out to give me some support. But boy, the water is getting hot. And I'll tell you more about it tomorrow's newscast. But for today, I'll be honest, I actually have no news. There is nothing breaking. I just want to give you an update on some of the big stories that are going on, obviously around the election and some other issues that I've been following. And then we'll go ahead and close out, excuse me, with a little bit of motivation because it's Friday, baby, 11/6. We made it. So happy Friday to you all. So, where do we start? Trump is claiming fraud on the election. But boy, let me start with Georgia. Georgia is a fantastic and very hot battleground when it comes to elections. So I'm going to give a shout out to all my former students who have gone out there to vote. Mahai, Chris, Erica, everybody in the Savannah and Atlanta area. Big up to you guys. Please like, share, and subscribe because I got mad love for all my Georgia folks. But it looks like there's a small possibility that Georgia might go blue. Georgia might actually be a Democratic state according to the popular vote. That's huge. Just found out that Joe might squeak ahead in Georgia and pull across securing that state as well. Also in Georgia, we got these Senate races. Just found out that your boy, what's the guy's name? David Perdue. David Perdue was, at my last report, he was at exactly 50.0%, which is what you need to avoid a runoff and just simply be declared the winner. But now that the absentee ballots are starting to roll in, his lead has dropped down to something like 49.8%. Which means there will be a runoff, which means his competitor, Democrat Jon Ossoff, might have a chance to take that seat. We're already in a runoff with Raphael Warnock, who is the pastor of Ebenezer Church, where Martin Luther King used to be the pastor, versus Kelly Loeffler, the senator who was appointed because the old senator basically retired out of his seat due to some health concerns. So that's definitely hot. Could you imagine if the state of Georgia goes blue? That hasn't happened since 92, like Bush Senior, I think. Imagine if they not only win one, but two Senate seats. If they win both Democratic seats as well, that means that they would get control of the Senate. They would have, though barely, control of the House. And it's possible that Joe Biden is going to take the presidential seat. So in theory, the problem is the results may not come because they're doing a whole nother thing in Georgia with the runoffs and all that. So it could be a while. But theoretically, this year, 2021 rather, you could have a supermajority between the president, the House, and the Senate, which means a lot of laws can get passed. A lot of things can be done when you have what's called a supermajority. Now, what can I say? Joe is expanding his lead in Nevada, so it's possible that he'll clinch that. He seems to be catching up in Pennsylvania, so I don't think he'll win, but certainly he's closing the gap. He's far ahead in popular votes, but nobody cares about popular votes because we have an electoral system. But this might be an opportunity for a Saturday school. So if you're interested in me expanding this idea, what I'm thinking about doing, if there's a demand for it, is looking into the issue of the Electoral College and alternatives to the Electoral College, some of which include a straight popular vote. Whoever gets the most votes win. And there's also an idea that I like, which is called ranked choice voting. It's something they do in Maine where you can rank your choices. And then if your first choice doesn't make it, the power of your vote goes to your second choice. So I'm particularly excited about that. And I plan to keep my eyes out on Maine to see exactly how it plays out. Now, Trump has, as we've predicted in this homeroom class, started litigation. But here's the great thing, and maybe it's not great, but here's what's playing out. So he's filed court cases in Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. And guess what's happened? Georgia, case dismissed. Michigan, rejected. Pennsylvania, throw the case out. And in Nevada, there is no evidence. Get out of here, Trump. So what does that mean? Are the judges rejecting his case? Maybe on the surface. But keep in mind, in the American court system, we have an appeals process. And what that means is now that it's thrown out, he can appeal to the higher court and the higher court. So there might be a way, and I don't know who these judges are, but my eyes aren't closed, excuse me, because the appeals process may just be a way to fast track it to the Supreme Court, where his appointees can perhaps change the course of things. So things seem to be moving fast, and we'll see. I'll give you a quick update in Puerto Rico and a little bit around the world. So in Puerto Rico, Ana Vera, who's an openly LGBTQIA black woman, was recently elected. So that's pretty huge. What else can I say around the world? Let's take a look at Hurricane Eta down there in South America is causing major damage. So far, it's gotten credit for killing at least a dozen people, mostly hitting Honduras and Guatemala. So if you have people down there, try your best to send out your prayers and thoughts. If you care, certainly do that. In terms of where my Africans are at, Cameroonians are under a lot of pressure from ICE as they are getting deported. The problem is where they are getting deported to has strict border control laws, and the U.S. is trying to negate or ignore these sovereign nations' border control laws, which say you can't come in with COVID. So we'll see how that plays. But right now, there are a lot of Cameroonian Americans who are fighting for these asylum seekers to ensure that not only do they get to stay in the country, but they also get their day in court to make their asylum case. Since I'm talking about immigration, I'll give you an update on what's happening in Georgia. You may remember that I talked about these women, about 40 of them, who have accused the physicians at the immigration center in Georgia for doing these unnecessary and aggressive gynecological exams. Well, here's the irony. ICE is deporting them. So these women who have complained are now getting deported. At least 7 of the 40 women have already been deported, and more seem to be on the way. So that's certainly a problem. Let's see what else I can get you caught up on. So, I want to talk about violence at the top of the hour. A lot of my students are concerned. Let me say we're 7 minutes in. A lot of my students are concerned about violence in the streets and what that looks like. So I'll tackle that in a second. Lindsey Graham, he's the guy who beat my boy Jamie Harrison down in South Carolina. Is getting bold. He is now talking about having these battleground states ignore the popular vote and appoint their own people to the Electoral College. So I think that's not okay. But let's get to violence. I think violence and the issues of violence in the street are sort of the top thing. But you know what? Before I get to that, let me talk about finances right quick. So if you're looking for the stimulus package, it seems like the gears are being greased up and there is a will to move a package forward. So Mitch McConnell, on the one hand, says as soon as we get back, and now the Senate is supposed to come back from vacation on Monday. As soon as they get back, the stimulus package is priority number 1 for him. So I'm glad to hear that. And even Nancy Pelosi has come out saying that she wants a stimulus package before Joe Biden goes into office. She's obviously an extremely strategic woman. Her play on this is if we can get this stimulus package in before Biden takes office, then he won't have that, $2 trillion debt on his books. It'll still be on Trump's books. So she's certainly trying to get that out. And I have a suspicion there will need to be and will probably be a much larger stimulus package that will come in 2021. When we talk about the fallout from COVID, as well as the issues of evictions, like there's going to be a big fallout when we get to the early part of 2021. Since we're talking about evictions, I should give you an update. This is perhaps the one piece of new news. Jared Kushner has already started eviction processes. So Jared Kushner, who is the son-in-law of Donald Trump and one of Trump's top advisors, is submitting eviction notices for his tenants. So if you want to look more into that, I think the organization is called the Westminster Management Group, and they are currently underway to evict people. So let me now get to what I think is the top story. So here's the concern. The first concern was that violence would erupt the day of the election because there was a concern that Joe Biden would win by a landslide. That was some of the predictions. And so people feared that there would be rebellions or acts of violence because of their boy losing so resoundly. Okay. But as it turns out, Trump actually won more popular votes this year than last year. So his base, you could say, is expanding. It's strengthening. You could also say that white people are making their stand. And that's where I think people are getting concerned. Now we're at the point, though, where it is controversial. And the problem with the controversy is that it gets people antsy. So when you think about these white boys who are already a little bit nervous and skittish carrying their guns around, these are the police, the authorized people with guns. What do you think these nervous white boys that do these backcountry campaigns are going to do? So there is a growing concern that as Trump makes these calls, matter of fact, I think it was Donald Trump Jr. who recently came on the record using language like all out war when it comes to this election. And that's the kind of language that incentivizes people to be dangerous. So let's start with that. First piece of evidence of violence. Trump Jr. calls for all out war. Second piece, social media is now coming up with new algorithms to moderate posts that incite violence. And so they're going back to the drawing board to see if they can try to tamp this thing down. So clearly social media campaigns, I'm talking about Twitter, Facebook in particular, are concerned. For number 3, there was a white man in Philadelphia who apparently drove up there from Virginia with the intention of storming the convention center where the votes are being counted. He was arrested apparently just outside of the building. I've got a fourth one here, which is Joe Biden. So Joe Biden, according to some reports, may actually deliver his victory speech today. And so the Secret Service has come out to say that they plan to bump up security. So this is another group that's concerned about violence. How about this one, boy? Steve Bannon. I haven't mentioned his name since I started doing these casts, but he's a big supporter of Trump and was controversial in the use of social media to influence people, right? Cambridge Group, I think, is the group that he was associated with. So anyway, he's recently come out on his own podcast calling for Dr. Fauci, the CDC guy, to be beheaded. Okay, I'm gonna leave that one right there. These are at least 5 examples of groups that are concerned or are calling for violence. And I do believe as this thing plays out, more and more American citizens will feel inspired to do something crazy. So I am concerned, and I want you to be concerned as well. What can we do? Maybe over in Hot Topics. So if you want, I usually at 45 after, you can slide on over to Hot Topics, and we're going to go live to unpack some of these things, and maybe the gun issue will come up then. So anyway, what are we looking at here? I think the main news is there is a slight possibility of a supermajority. The longer that this thing stays controversial, the more likely there will be violence. And we're clearly turning a corner. So this is an opportunity for me to focus on some motivation. So it's Friday. Friday was usually our day to testify. This is the day where we encourage you to say good things about you. You know, there's an old saying that sometimes the only good things you're going to hear about you are the good things you say about you. And so take today and do a bit of reflection. What goals have you accomplished? How have you been helpful to your friends or family members? What have you done to participate in some self-care? Because that's really more important now than it has been previously. With all of the tension that's going on, it's easy to get caught up in the wave of drama. But I want to encourage you today and over the weekend to focus within. You have value and you bring value to the marketplace, to your family and friends. But sometimes we forget that value because all of the layers of stuff that has been put on top of us. And it's something that we really have to think about consciously, because that is the way that we're going to maintain our mental health. I have struggled with it personally. And so I understand the struggles that we are going through. And I'm here to offer that on this weekend, try to find some time to be meditative, to focus within, to quiet your mind, and to allow yourself to just process all of these things that are going on. And I do believe that on the back end of that, you are going to feel better. So I wish you the best. I hope you the best this weekend. Please take care of yourself, because that's what Friday is all about. You are good. You've done some good. Let's recognize that on our journey. All right, guys, I got to get some water. I'm out.